It started with screams, loud, piercing screams that echoed through the night, one after the other, from every corner of the village. I'll never forget the sound, like something being torn apart. But it wasn't just pain, it was fear, confusion, and something else I still can't name. I was there that day. I saw it all. The new teacher, Mr. Adisa, came to our village to teach at the school. He was young, maybe 25, with a smile that made everyone trust him. The elders said he was a blessing, someone who would help shape our children's future. The girls at the market whispered about how handsome he was. Even my sister Amina couldn't stop talking about him. She laughed more when he was around. "Well, it's so much to exist within the games," said Alpha Mieso. That day, everything seemed normal. It was sunny, and the air smelled of fresh cassava. Mr. Adisa had been in the village for a few weeks, and he was settling in. People liked him. The girls liked him even more. He was kind, polite, and always helping out with chores when he wasn't teaching. But something was off. That evening, I saw him standing under the old Baobab tree near the school. He was talking to Amina. She looked nervous, but she kept smiling. As I watched, more girls from the village started walking toward the tree, as if they'd been called. It wasn't just Amina. There were at least 10 of them. They all stood there, like they were waiting for something. I didn't know what to think, so I stayed hidden behind the bushes, watching. Then, something strange happened. The air around the tree felt heavy, almost like the sky itself was pressing down. I heard Mr. Adisa speaking, but his voice didn't sound like his own anymore. It was deeper, louder, like it was coming from everywhere at once. The girls seemed frozen, staring at him like they couldn't look away. I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't move. He said something I couldn't understand, and the girls began to collapse, one by one, right there under the tree. I thought they'd fainted, but their bodies were shaking. It wasn't normal shaking. It was like they were being pulled by invisible strings. Their mouths opened wide like they were screaming, but no sound came out. Then it all went quiet. The girls stood up slowly, their faces blank, and walked back to their homes. Mr. Adisa just stood there, smiling. He looked different. His eyes were darker, almost black. He glanced in my direction for a second, and I swear he saw me, even though I was hiding. But he didn't say anything. He just turned and walked away. Itbamena thought of me for a moment, and after he left, she cried. That night, the screams started. Every girl who had been at the tree that day began screaming in their homes. Their parents rushed out, confused and terrified. By morning, the news spread. All the girls were pregnant. Every single one of them. The elders confronted Mr. Adisa, but he denied everything. He said he had no idea what they were talking about, but the girls couldn't explain it either. They didn't remember what happened under the tree, or how they got pregnant. Amina wouldn't talk to me after that. She wouldn't talk to anyone. None of the girls would. A few days later, Mr. Adisa disappeared. His hut was empty, and no one saw him leave. The village was left in chaos. The elders tried to cover it up, but the truth was too big to hide. The girls gave birth months later. Too soon for it to be natural. The babies were strange, quiet, too quiet, with dark eyes that seemed to watch everything. No one talks about it anymore, but the Baobab tree is still there. People avoid it now. They say it's cursed. Sometimes, at night, when the wind blows just right, you can still hear faint screams. And I can't stop wondering Who, or what, was Mr. Adisa? End quote. Mr. Adisa arrived in our village on a Monday morning. I remember it clearly because everyone had gathered at the school to welcome him. The headmaster introduced him as a well-educated man from the city who had come to help us. He had a suitcase in one hand and a small leather-bound book in the other. The book caught my eye. It looked old, with strange symbols on the cover. He spoke confidently, thanking everyone for their warm welcome. His voice was smooth, almost hypnotic. The villagers were impressed. My father even said, "This man will bring greatness to our children." But I noticed something odd. When he shook hands with people, he held on a little too long. His smile lingered, and his eyes, those dark, piercing eyes, seemed to study everyone as if he was searching for something. The Baobab tree had always been a part of the village. It was massive, its roots twisting like giant snakes into the ground. The elders told stories about it being sacred, a place where spirits rested. No one was supposed to cut it or harm it in any way. Children were warned not to play near it, but we did anyway. It was just a tree, or so we thought. After Mr. Adisa's arrival, he seemed drawn to the tree. He often sat under it, reading his strange book. The villagers thought it was harmless, just a teacher enjoying the shade. But I saw the way he looked at the tree, like it was more than just a place to sit. Sometimes, he'd place his hand on its trunk and close his eyes, like he was listening to something. Amina had always been full of life. She was the kind of person who made everyone laugh, always singing or joking. But after that day under the baobab tree, she changed. She became quiet, withdrawn. She stopped laughing, stopped eating. It was like a shadow had fallen over her. One night, I tried to talk to her. She was sitting on her bed, staring at the wall. "Amina, what happened that day?" "Under the tree." "But something was under the tree." "Under the tree." She didn't answer at first. Then she whispered, "I don't remember. But I feel different." "Different how?" I asked, but she wouldn't say anything more. Monkey said. When Mr. Adisa disappeared, the village was in an uproar. The elders searched his hut and found nothing unusual. No clues, no belongings, not even the strange book he always carried. It was like he had vanished into thin air. The baobab tree became a source of fear. People avoided it, whispering about curses and spirits. Some even wanted to cut it down, but the elders forbade it. "We don't anger the spirits," they said. When the girls gave birth, it was unlike anything anyone had ever seen. The babies were born silently, without cries or tears. Their eyes were dark, almost black, and they seemed to stare right through you. The midwives were terrified. One even left the village, saying, "These are not normal children." The villagers didn't know what to do. Some wanted to abandon the babies, but the mothers refused. They loved their children, despite the fear and suspicion surrounding them. The village has never been the same. The baobab tree still stands, casting its shadow over us. Children grow up hearing the story, but no one goes near it. Some say Mr. Adisa's spirit lingers there, waiting. And the children born that day? They've grown into quiet, observant teenagers. They rarely speak, but their presence is undeniable. It's as if they know something we don't. I've tried to move on, but the memory of that night haunts me. Sometimes I dream of Mr. Adisa's dark eyes staring at me through the branches of the tree. The elders say time will heal, but I'm not sure. The tree still whispers when the wind blows, and I can't help but wonder, what will happen when the children of that night come of age? Will they seek the truth, or will they bring the same darkness that marked their arrival? Even now, The events of that day ripple through the village in ways we can't fully understand. The tree has become a symbol of our fears, our unanswered questions, and our guilt. Did we welcome a man, or did we invite something far more sinister into our lives? Sometimes I think about the way Mr. Edisa's hand rested on the baobab, a connection between him and something older, something we had no power to comprehend. The village's elders have convened multiple times since the incident, debating the origins of our mysterious teacher. Was he a man of the city, as he claimed, or something born of the forest, sent to test or punish us? The younger generations, raised on whispered fears, ask why no one acted sooner, why the warnings were ignored. No one has answers, only regrets. 2 years after Mr. Edisa's disappearance, I had a moment that chilled me to my core. I was walking home late one evening, past the edge of the forest where the baobab looms. The moon was high, casting pale light on its gnarled branches. As I passed, I thought I saw movement. A figure stood beneath the tree, tall and still. My heart stopped. It was him, or at least, it looked like him. The same dark eyes, the same piercing gaze. He didn't move, didn't say a word, but I felt his presence as surely as I felt my own heartbeat. I ran as fast as I could, not stopping until I reached my home. When I turned to look back, he was gone. The next morning, the villagers found strange markings carved into the tree, symbols that no one could read, similar to those on the book Mr. Edisa carried. The elders forbade anyone from touching them, saying they were warnings not meant for human hands. Years later, the baobab remains, untouched, a silent reminder of the mystery that forever changed our lives. The children born that night live among us, their silence more unnerving than words. They've grown stronger, more aware. Sometimes they gather near the tree, staring at it, as though they're waiting for something. What they're waiting for none of us know, and we're too afraid to ask. The village moves forward, but the shadow of that night lingers. People like me, who remember, carry the weight of it. We tell the story in hushed tones, hoping it will serve as a warning. But deep down, I know the story isn't over. The baobab stands as a question, unanswered and unending, and sometimes, when the wind blows just right, I still hear the faint screams. Thank you for joining me on this chilling journey through the shadows of my village's past. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more unsettling tales, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Hit the like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and stay tuned for more stories that will keep you up at night.